Welcome everybody to this Amsterdam Data Science webinar on intelligent interaction in education. Organized this time from the Amsterdam University of Applied Sciences, and particularly the Center of Expertise on Applied AI and the Smart Education Lab. We have three nice presentations, one on primary education, one on secondary, and one on higher education. Not in that order, by the way. But before going there, let me briefly just say again where we're from. So, at the Applied University, we have the Centers of Expertise, and one of them is Applied AI, and that's where we are from. And specifically, we are in the Smart Education Lab, where we think about how to use artificial intelligence in education. And particularly, if you want to know more about that, here's a URL where you can check out a little website with a document where you see the cover here on the left-hand side, where you get brief descriptions of all the projects that we are running here. And we do things like interactive knowledge graphs, on which you will be hearing a presentation shortly, game-based learning, learning analytics. We have a presentation on that also, but then at a different site from the UVA, and computational thinking. But that's for some other time, I suppose. For now, let's go to the presentations. We'll start with Marco Kragten. That's about secondary education, learning with interactive qualitative representations. Then we move on to Somaya, where I did work together with the people at the Free University on designing a social robotic for math learning. That's primary education. And then Natasha, who is representing or replacing, if you like, Ervin, because he could not make it today due to some unforeseen circumstances, about IguideME, a learning analytics tool used in higher education. But I think I've been talking already enough, so I think I'll give the floor to Marco if he is ready for that. Marco, please take the floor.
Okay, so welcome everybody. My presentation is about learning with interactive qualitative representations. And the results I'm going to show are mainly coming from a big project that we are running, almost finished. It's the project Denker, or Thinker in English. It's a CRA Pro project. And I'm working on it together with Bert and some other colleagues from the Amsterdam University of Applied Science. So let me start with some introduction to the project. In secondary education, and well, I suppose in all education, we think that system thinking is an important skill to learn. Students and pupils have to learn about complex and dynamic systems almost in every class, in biology, physics, geography, etc. And well, although they have to learn about these systems, the system thinking skill itself is not structurally taught in secondary education. So there are a lot of diagrams in the textbooks, but all of them are obviously static. They cannot interact with it. It's just a picture representing a system. For instance, something about testosterone regulation in biology. And all those diagrams have got their own, well, vocabulary or have a variety of formats. So students don't actually learn an overarching vocabulary to think about systems. So with that in mind, we get to the question for this project: and how can interactive qualitative representations be used effectively as a method to develop system thinking skills in students? And well, system thinking skills as a generic skill, but in the meanwhile, they also learn about the topic-specific systems. So, for instance, testosterone regulation, or something about force and motion in physics. And the second question is, while they do that, while they work with the interactive qualitative representations, can we do it in such a way that learners can work at their own level, and they are supported while working on the representation? and the workload of the teacher, if that can be relieved. So that's the goal of the project. And before I dive into the interactive representations itself, it's good to refer to this picture from Luke's Tales from Belgium. Is that well, the last millennia, 3, 4, 5 millennia, our brains haven't gotten any better. Not really. It's still the same brain as our ancestors, but we're getting smarter. And why are we getting smarter? It's because we are able to construct representations of knowledge, and that can be all kinds of representations, mathematical text, but also qualitative representations, as we will present today. And while we construct those representations, we make meaning of the world around us. And while we make meaning, we see our representation, we make meaning, and we go back and we can make our representations better or learn from our representations. So that's an important notice of what we are doing. And what we are doing is that, well, we want to learn about system thinking, and so it's about learning how dynamic systems behave. And typically, students in secondary education in the Netherlands learn something about that in upper secondary education, and almost always with a mathematical model. So what we have done is that we've created a vocabulary, a qualitative vocabulary for representing dynamic systems, and students can build their representation with these symbols, which I will demonstrate in a short while. But nevertheless, how you do it qualitatively or quantitatively, understanding systems is difficult. So what we've also have done is that we made a number of levels in our software. So students don't get the full vocabulary at once, but they get it gradually from the second year of secondary education, which I will demonstrate a model from next slide, until the 5th grade, and then they're at the final level with the full vocabulary available for them, which is with which they can represent well, very complex systems. So the vocabulary has certain levels, and well, our main goal is to get them active learning about the systems they have to know. And in the meanwhile, as I said, for the goal is to support the learner automatically and to support the teacher automatically. So let's go and check out one of those representations. So this is a representation at level 2 of the software. So there are 3 levels above this level. And this is a model that we teach in lower secondary education. As you can see, it's about global warming, about the greenhouse effect, and effect on the biodiversity. So what are the things in this representation? Well, the first thing they have to understand, the students, is that there's a difference between entities, the physical objects within a system, and quantities. Quantities are properties of the entities, and they can change. They can increase, decrease, or be stable. So that are some things they learn at the second grade. Those quantities can be causally related with each other, and at this level we only have a positive and a negative effect, meaning that the positive effect is the causal relation is in the same direction. If in this case, if temperature is increasing, biodiversity, sorry, it's a negative one. If temperature is increasing, biodiversity is decreasing, so it's the opposite of each other, and the positive effects, like here, are in the same direction. So they can run a simulation. So they make a qualitative representation, but it's an executable model. So the system can be run with the right parameters set, the initial settings set in the beginning. And what also can happen is that if some effects are contradictory, we can get ambiguity in the system. So multiple end states are possible. we've in project we have made some type of support, which also will be visible in video in the next slide or the one after. And one of those is the support for when they run a simulation, so they can do all kind of things wrong, or they can forget things before running a simulation. For instance, forget to start some initial conditions, and this support, the exclamation mark, is for that. So they only get it, they run the simulation, and without setting the proper things. Another type of support that we've built in is a norm-based support. That means that at the back of the representation that the students are creating, we've got a norm representation that's built by or created by us or by the teacher. That's the right answer, and the support is checking the model the students are building against the norm representation and get feedback on it, which I will always also demonstrate. And we've created a progress bar so they can see how much of the diagram they have to make they have already finished. So within the project, we've got a number of student support functionalities created. So one of those things is that we've created the option to watch students or teachers creating a model. And you can also collaborate on the same model. So students can create a model, the same model, or work on the same model from different machines. What we've also created is a built-in chat function. So that was especially convenient in the COVID time when we worked a lot of lessons online. And well, we first chatted with whatever Teams or something, but that was very inconvenient because you have to switch between screens, and you have to check out which student is what, and then go to the model. So it's now built in, and you can see when you go to the model of the student, you can see that they have chatted something, and you can react to it immediately, and while you're watching the model that they've created. Another thing that's in that same line is annotation. So you can, as a teacher, you can make annotations within the model of the student to help them forward. So if you're checking out all the models and you see something is wrong, you can give them advice in that way as well. So we also created some built-in videos in which they can see very briefly how to construct ingredients within the software. So that saves a lot of space in the workbooks, which we also have. So they can visually see how to construct the things. Well, the other two I've mentioned. So the norm-based queue and advice, if something is constructed not in the proper way according to the norm model, and the scenario advice is the advice that they get when they run a simulation. And the progress bar I've also mentioned. We also created teacher dashboards, which I will not go into too much in this presentation. I will show one slide of one of the teacher dashboards, which I often use myself, which I find very convenient when I walk through the class. So I'm going to start a video in which you can see how you can interact with the software. So I just created an entity, so a physical object. I have to give it a name. You don't see the drop-down box. That's something that I don't get when I do a screen capture. You have to save your model. There's an announcement below. So Sun is an entity, it's a physical object, and it has some properties. It has some quantities which can change, but acidity is not one of them. The sun is not acid. But the sun has an amount of sunlight that it can emit, and that can increase and decrease. So another thing in a model, also a physical object, is Earth. So that's an entity, and they, by working in a workbook, they find out that the Earth has two properties, two quantities, namely surface temperature and radiated heat. So now the student is in the workbook and has to do something that that he or she doesn't understand, and writes a chat, and the teacher can see which students have chatted, so they don't have to go through all the models to see if something is posted, but they get an overview. But the student now finds out the video function and sees that a causal relationship is created like this, so he can move on without help of the teacher. So never mind. And he or she goes in building. Oh, so that's another functionality we made to let them organize everything neatly. Well, this is the goes a bit fast, but I will rewind it for. So now it's going to create a causal relationship, but it's in the wrong direction because sunlight influences surface temperature, not the other way around. And surface temperature has a positive effect on the radiated heat. So now we're going to run a simulation, and now the exclamation mark shows up because the system detects that there's no initial change, and you have to set an initial change at the beginning of the causal chain in order for the system to propagate its change to the other quantities. And now you see the simulation result, in which the other quantities also increase. So that was a short demonstration with some of the functionalities that we've created. Here you see one slide of the teacher dashboard that I often use in class itself. For instance, I walk around the class and I have a tablet in my hands, and well, when students are working. With students in a classroom, you can walk by and you see some of their action, but they're also able to hide themselves. And when you walk by, they act like they're working, but actually they're stuck or don't do anything. So this helps you detect such students, and it's very simple, but I think a powerful way of looking at who's engaged and who's not. So this is Bert, who was working on a model, and he started at 1815. And in the beginning, well, he created some things, and I don't. It's not saying what it created, but he's going forward, and the things that he's creating are correct. And he's made, well, here are some mistakes, but he quickly repaired them. And well, it was a short break. Perhaps he was reading something in the workbook, and then he moved on and on. But then there's a long pause. Well, I guess Bert was going to eat at that moment. But in class, that this might be something to be aware of. Hey, there's no activity for a long time, or there are many mistakes in the not here shown, but perhaps there are a lot of mistakes students are making, and then you can go to the student and help them to move on. And then finally, all ingredients, 24 in this case, are created, and the student or Bert is finished. So I just presented a level 2 model, but we've got a lot more lesson series created with this software. So on level 2 for biology, we've also got something about blood circulation, or something about a food chain, and for physics, about sound or properties of a star or electric circuits, and geography and economy. We also got some models, fewer, but those are we're also making new ones still, so we're getting more of those. And then on level 3 and level 4, which I have not demonstrated, we also created some lessons like eutrophication, which is a big deal in the Netherlands with nitrogen being emitted into the forests, etc. And at level 4, you can even do more complicated things like predator-prey model, Lotka and Volterra for those who know something about, or calcium regulation in the body, and in physics things like force and motion, or even stars orbiting a black hole. So that's I think it. If you're interested in the project or want to know more, or perhaps try something out, send me an email.
Then we move on to Somaya. We did work together with the people at the Free University. on designing a social robotic for math learning. That's primary education. Please take the floor.
Thank you, Bert. My name is Somaya Allouch. I'm a researcher at the University of Amsterdam and at the University of Applied Sciences in Amsterdam. And I'm heading the research group Digital Life, where we are mainly looking into the development and use of digital technologies for health and well-being. And this is one of our projects which we started just slightly after COVID. So I wanted to share today a specific project with you, which is related to primary education. COVID, the pandemic didn't only leave us with a lot of new insights and a lot of problems, but we also had to deal with young children staying at home, not being able to go to school, and also having it had an impact on their school results. So the idea behind this project was to see how we could use social robotics for the gap in education that they had that has been established. Also, it has been shown that primarily children from certain groups had the most drawback of not being able to go to school. Maybe if I will do something like this, Bert, we can just move on.
Just say next slide and I'll do next slide.
Next slide. So that's the background of this project, that a lot of education was at home. Children had a drawback in their educational results, and especially for the math education, we saw a very huge drop in grades, especially also in the Netherlands. Next slide, please. The idea behind this project is that we wanted to see how we could use social robotics for offering feedback, and how the potential social robotics could be used to specifically math education, and how that would support the child's result in hopefully filling a little bit of that gap that they had encountered during the pandemic. So we were using research where we were looking into how social behavior can also be used, that we look into the intertwining of social behaviors and the math task, because we know that getting feedback during educational processes helps a lot and can be very motivating for children to study new things. Especially it has been established that for subjects like math, it could help if children would get more interactive feedback. So that led us to the research question of this project: how to better intertwine the social behaviors of the robot and the math task. Next slide, please. We have used the social constructive perspectives so that it makes sense to include the different social behaviors, and also because the learning itself is inherently a shared and a social process. People learn primarily through social interaction, and therefore we have been using, if you would see that the connection with your teacher, that's a very important factor for success, and that's something that we wanted to replicate within the human-robot collaboration. Also, research shows that children learn better if they have more familiar agencies, and if that is related to non-human agents, they are more motivated to learn from that agent. Next slide, please. So the closer the children feel to a robot, the more interested they are to keep interacting with that robot. This is the key for the long-term effectiveness of a robot math tutor. And therefore, we also we looked in our implementation of the robot tutor to create these key characteristics. and these consisted of what they call the math instruction theory, so the realistic math education, and that consists of a couple of key characteristics. For example, being active, realistic, holistic, interactive, and using scaffolding to enhance the success experience of the children while doing the math task. So the key is that the math is grounded in a reality and that the education is active and interactive, a kind of learning by doing together. Next slide, please. Yeah. I have to. So that also means that looking into the different aspects for which were like the main center for our research, that we were looking into how the teacher would provide that the success of the children is also, that the experience of the success of the children is actually also the main interaction. So we tried to combine those realistic elements to have those as a design requirement, so that we could design a math tutor where we could actually implement that interaction. And that means that we use the intertwining of the social behavior with the math task of the child, where we could contribute to the relation formation, and that it was grounded in a reality for the math problems. So that also meant that we had to use scaffolding for the learning process, so that the children could actually learn the experience of having and seeing that success, so that they could also stay motivated. Next slide, please. We have used, the basis of this interaction was based on the child and the robot chat, and the interaction where we were looking into the interests and the hobbies of the children. That's how we conducted the intertwining, or how we translated the intertwining part, and that the robot shares insights, ideas about what the children liked and what the robotic friends were. Furthermore, we also use the multiplication of problems, such as that they are part of the anecdotes that the robot shares with the children, and that we also use that the social and education components were intertwined. So we had the reality of the math task, and that was actually embedded in the chat that a kid had with the robot. It also means that we provided this reality, what I said before, to ground it in a real life context, so that the child would realize that it was grounded in reality, and that the child was actually praised for the effort and not for having a good or bad answer. So it was really praised for the effort, and it could also help ask for help. So just to show you a very short clip of how we did that, what is an example of this math interaction. I think it's the next slide, Bert. Yes, it is unfortunately in Dutch, but I can of course translate it. I'm afraid we don't hear anything, Bert.
I'm sorry, not sure what I should do in order to make it audible.
Okay. We did have subtitles though.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, go back. That was the full video, right?
Yeah.
Next slide.
Yes.
Or again, say what you want.
No, yeah, no, it's fine. We can go to the next slide. So what you see is that we have used a different level of math adaptation to make sure that we had a baseline for all the children, which we got from the teachers, and there were 12 difficulty levels. That means that the children started at different levels based on their real adaptation of how they performed during their school days, actually. So that also means that they could give the correct answer, and based on the correct answer, they would go to a level up or a level down. The second module was focused on personalization, and that means, next slide, please. And the personalization was based on a couple of things. We used a memory-based personalization strategy, which was developed in another part of the study. And in that personalization module, we had three things. So the robot remembers the child's name, the robot remembers the hobbies and the interests of the child, and the robot refers to and continues past conversations. And that was part of the relationship building to keep that ongoing. Just like what you do with your teacher, the teacher also remembers your name and your hobby, and you will not have to tell that every time again. The second part related to the conversation, making it more personal, and what kind of topics were interested to the child, so that the robot will remember them. And those were intertwined into the dialogue. So if a child had a specific hobby of swimming or soccer, that was co-created in a secret handshake, and it was a well appreciated feature as well. It will be shown later on. So the personalization module consisted of the handshake. Maybe next slide, Bert. Yeah, so there's no sound, but you can see that the personalization is a handshake which was remembered by the robot when they encountered the specific child the next time, actually. I think we can move to the next slide, Bert. We can move to the next slide.
Okay. The robot makes a personal comment to the student.
Yes.
Trying to find the next slide, hold on. There it is.
Yeah, here it is. This is the final module, and that one adds to the scaffolding to the interaction. So the scaffolding to the interaction of the child is related to how we, using the realistic math model, how the guidance is offered by the robot, so that it will support the development, and it can be used for informal solution strategies, and also to guide the parents how the child could actually solve this math problem. And the guidance is offered after a mistake or if the child would ask for it. So the key of this progressive systematization is actually the relationship between the numbers and the different categories. So for example, if you could see 14 is maybe a bit of a big number, so they could divide it and they could get guidance into how they could split that up. So that makes it easier to work when you know your basic tables, actually. Whenever the child makes a mistake or gets stuck, the robot uses an appropriate informal strategy to break down the problem into these intermediate steps. I think, yeah. Also, what you can see is that the robot, it could be done verbally and visually, and the child could get another chance if to solve the problem after using this breakdown, so that they could succeed in the second attempt. I think that we can go to the next slide. And then based on the rationale we just presented, we hypothesized that the scaffolding, but also the relationship building could actually increase the children's math performance. We furthermore expected that the social presence of the robots and the feelings of friendship would also be could also actually motivate that it would increase the social presence of the robot by using also the scaffolding. So that the scaffolding would actually increase the social presence of the robot because they helped the children guide them through the math problem. It would not, the other hypothesis is that would not necessarily increase the feelings of friendship because of the guidance of the robot tutor. Okay, so to test the hypothesis, we ran a user study on 6 different schools. We had approximately around 130 children, and from those, no, we had more children, but 130 participants. From them, we had complete data, and those were included in the final analysis. Overall, that was like an average of 70 minutes of interaction per session, and also we had children from different backgrounds, different levels of schools, and primarily group 6 and 7 in primary Dutch education. Each child interacted 3 times with the robot within 1 week period. So they had 3 interactions within 1 week, and a week was from Monday till Friday. Furthermore, what we can say is that, for example, 80% of the interaction was filled with a math dialogue. So 80% of the interaction around this conversation was filled with math dialogue. And what we can also see is that we used a 2x2 design between subjects design, and where personalization and scaffolding were the independent variables, and we measured math performance and the robot sociability as the dependent variables. And next slide, please. So let's have a look at the results. The performance scores of the personalization condition actually shows that that was not statistically significantly different. So there was no difference between the personalization conditions. What we can also see that there was a significant, oh yeah, next, let me check. Next slide. Yeah, no, this is fine. There was a significant effect of scaffolding on math performance. That's what you see in the table, in the figure. And after the first session, the participants made less mistakes and were faster to actually solve the math problems in the scaffolding condition. So the question, however, is what part of the scaffolding caused this effect? Because what you can see is if we look at the results, they are generally high already. So is that because we think that it was likely the result of the easy starting level? And this also means that the children were not exposed to the guidance content a lot. So they were performing pretty well, and not a lot of the children were exposed to the guidance content. So this could also, it also means that it is unlikely that the children improved their solving strategy just from these few exposures they had with the robot. What we however, you know, the consequences of making a mistake is lower in the scaffolding condition because they got more guidance and the robot offered more help for the second chance. So instead of just moving on to the next problem, they were able to solve that particular math problem at that time. It might be the case that this actually boosted the children's math efficacy overall. Which could be an important factor to math performance as well. We can go to the next slide. Of course, if we will look at the robot sociability, the social presence scale was not reliable enough, so we have looked into the different separate items and we analyzed them separately instead. That means that the results show that the robot felt more alive to children when they were in the guidance condition, and that the feelings, when the robot did not personalize the interaction, the children attributed it more to the feelings of friendships towards the robot when it was guiding them through their behavior. So it appears that overall the scaffolding behaviors were actually increasing the social relevance of the robot, and that was something which was from all the different conditions. The feelings of friendship, we did not find a statistically different significant difference, and therefore we also had a look into the individual items. The same actually counted there, and the analysis showed that the robot is seen more like a friend in the personalized condition than in the non-personalized condition. And actually, if we can go, Bert, to the final slide, I think we're now at. Yeah, if we can conclude in our paper, in the paper that we made about this study, and also from the study itself, we can see that the validated design specifications which we found and which we collected would actually support using a robotic tutor for social interaction, and that it intertwines the social and the educational components. The concrete behaviors that we provided via the robot tutor increases the math performance and makes the robot more socially relevant to the children. It might bring us a step closer to offering teachers these kind of tutors as a new tool to address the educational backlog, which can be caused by either a pandemic or a shortage of personnel, etc.
And then Natasha, who is representing or replacing, if you like, Erwin, because he could not make it today due to some unforeseen circumstances, about IguideME. A learning and analytics tool used in higher education.
Well, I'm glad to be here with you all. My name is Natasha Brouwer. I work at the University of Amsterdam at the Teaching and Learning Center Science, and I'm involved in projects with innovation, with technology, and in professional development of lecturers. I'm here today in place of Erwin van Vliet, but I hope I can share the ideas with you. It's about our project that we have together with 3 universities, University of Amsterdam, Free University, and University in Groningen, about Feedback Go. Feedback Go in Dutch, feedback grootschalig onderwijs, education for large groups, and about IguideME. I will tell you what IguideME does for us. So let me introduce you to Ervin. So this is Ervin. And he's a researcher and a lecturer, and he's a program director, and he's a brain scientist, and he has 2 children. Both parents work, so now he's in the hospital, but you can see that he's a really, really very busy person. He would make otherwise time to be here. So he teach a course with about 100 students, sometimes more, depends. But what is very special that 90% of Ervin's students come to lectures prepared, and Erwin supports students individually. Sounds crazy, right? So it's it works. So let's meet Saskia. Saskia is one of Ervin's students. It was a real story. She missed last 2 lectures, and she couldn't complete the last reading assignment. And actually, she would like to get good marks, but it is so difficult. And then Saskia receives a message from Ervin, and Ervin helped her with some more examples. Yeah, this really happens. How is it possible? How is it possible to get a large group of students and have such an individual approach? Giving instant feedback, personal attention, and at the same time be a scientist doing research and have family obligations and even management. Well, it can if you use IguideME. And how does it work? What is actually the real problem? The personalized feedback is important, as we know, to get more self-regulations, but it is so much time-consuming and particularly problematic in large-scale courses. And automatic feedback could help, but it could be ineffective, not always effective, and there is also important that there is some social comparison, but it has to be done well. So in that case, we got a solution with that intervening feedback with proper peer comparison was for us in this project the right decision by using an e-learning analytics dashboard, IguideME, which means I guide my education, and get the solution for that. I would like to show you two perspectives. The student perspective, how students get activated, motivated, and are helped for self-regulating learning, and for lecturers, an early warning system, how to optimize course design, and how to use educational tools. It is known from the literature that there is a lot of research done on learning analytics, of course, but from this PhD research, there was a lot of literature read. We know that there are 3 elements that are important for success, and it is a learning environment, learning process, and learning outcomes, which can be analyzed by learning analytics, but they are actually, there are quite no studies where all these 3 elements were studied at the same time, and we were lucky that we were doing this in our with IguideME. We take all these 3 aspects. IguideME is an open source software. It can be adjusted to personal needs of students and of the teacher. And what is very important, at least for us, it was very important, it is integrated in learning management system, in our case, in Canvas. But in the case of Groningen University, they will be Brightspace. I think HBA is also using Brightspace, right? So let's look first at the student perspective, how IguideME can activate, motivate, and self-regulate, support self-regulated learning. So this is Canvas for the ones who know how it looks like at the UVA at least. And IguideME link you can see in the left menu of Canvas course. It will go on when the students enters that link. He or she get a bar view, and the first question that the students are asked to do is to set the goal grade. So what is the ambition of the students in this course? How high the students want to reach, and to compare with the same group of students, because it is important to compare yourself, at least from the literature it is known. It is important to compare your behavior with the group of individuals who have the same goal. It can be demotivating if you are compare yourself with a Nobel Prize winner. It's or if you are a runner, it is better to compare yourself with someone who can run approximately as fast or as long as you can to stay motivated and to encourage each other. So this is the first step that students need to do, and then they can see the comparison on different aspects of the course. So these are the activities of the course. This is the course of Ervin. He uses quizzes. He uses a software, Perusal. This is a software where students can read together and give each other peer feedback. He can measure attendance, practice sessions, and also exam grades and learning outcomes. And even IguideME is capable to predict grades. Next to it, the notifications are provided to the student, so you can set this up. Also, the student, but also a lecturer can do that. And in these notifications, all notifications are developed in developed in the positive way. So when you are better, or when you need to catch up with others, you always get a positive message. When the student has a dashboard, kind of a grid view of the dashboard, so you can see grades of the summative assessment. You can see formative assessment, and the student can see learning outcomes and the predictive grade. For this, if you click further, then you can see the second level with more information. So this is the tile about perusal assignments, and you can also look at the learning outcomes. So how far the students is with catching the learning process. The next slide I would like to show you what the lecturers can do with it. So how the lecturers can see how is it possible that you can see your individual student in the large group of students, and what can we learn about course design, and what kind of educational tools we can add to IguideME. So this is the lecture dashboard, and you see in the menu there are different things. They are you can make your dashboard the way you wish. And then you can have an early warning system having a student overview. You can see the grades, and there are the possibility to arrange the data analytics and the notification center. The notification center uses we connected it with the Canvas notification tools. How Ervin could see Saskia, that she has a problem. If you remember what I said at the beginning, you can see how students are doing, and with these numbers in red, you can see which students need more attention and which students are just doing fine, and you can concentrate to other things. So you can send the messages through IguideME, but in the case that students has a larger problem, then it is possible to personally contact the students, and this works almost always very well and stimulates students. So there is also a grade predictor to get grade predictor to work. Of course, we need data from the previous years, and it is known that you cannot just predict like that otherwise. But we got quite good results with predicting capacity of IguideME when we had 2 years. What was one of the goals of Feedback Go project is how could we optimize course design by using this kind of tool, and Ervin did in his course an experiment by giving by organizing activities of in Perusal software. So these are assignments. He had 14 assignments in his course, 14 reading assignments where Perusal was used, and he was in alternative way. First assignment was graded, and second assignment was non-graded, and third assignment was non-graded, and the fourth assignment was graded, and like this. So you can see on the left side are graded assignment, and on the right side are non-graded assignment. And the grade that he gave was 2% on the final course grade. But you can see what a big difference it is when you don't give any credits for work students invest. You see that after the second assignment, which is not graded, there is already the grade diminished. And if you go on, the 14th assignment that were not graded is actually very badly done. But the 12 assignments was graded again. I mean, after the ones that were not, you can see how that immediately the marks are higher. Well, we did the experiments with two groups, so the ones who used IguideME and the ones who didn't use IguideME, and you can see what does it mean. So actually, we were so happy to see that IguideME or having this possibility to see in your own learning process that it stimulated students, and we got see that for the graded assignments and for ungraded assignments, the students with who had IguideME performed better, but on the long term, non-graded assignments also IguideME cannot make wonders. So our recommendation was grade the assignments and give a small percentage of points for these kind of activities that are important to improve a learning process. We looked at the effects of the IguideME also using some educational instruments. So we looked at the motivation and learning strategies instrument and achievement goal model, and we look at grades and we look at the evaluations, and we see that the blue ones are IguideME and the black ones are the control group. You see that at certain points, students who used IguideME are better performing, have a better self-regulation and a better peer learning using these instruments. And with AGM, we also see that the students with IguideME had reached better results in this instrument, in particular when they are asked on their motivation, on their goal to perform better than others, which is quite positive, not to be so good as others, but to perform better. We also, of course, were interested if the students got better marks or better exams or with diminished dropout. Well, we couldn't find the differences at the exam, but then when we looked deeper on questions on a higher Bloom level, then we have seen a significant better results with students who used IguideME, and we were very happy with that. But of course, it depends how your course is designed, and actually it gives it's promising. The students' evaluation was positive. These are we had the group. This was the open answer, and we clustered them. So 12 students in the group that answered. The group was about 70 students. Explicitly said that they liked peer comparison, and several said that it helped them with studying. And there was only one student who felt demotivated. The years before, we also had the study where we have compared students with the average students and not with the students with the same goal. There we noticed that more students were demotivated. So in this case, we had the improvement in our study. We also have prepared the paper for the journal. It is already accepted in Journal of Learning Analytics, but it is not yet published. I think it's in press. We are still busy. Our project is still going on. We got a prolongation of the project. It is a SURF project until December 2023, and we are working, collaborating, and also trying to commercialize the product IguideME so that it will be able to be used also after our project is completed. I'm already over the time, I think. So this is the last slide where I would like to show our team. The team is diverse, quite large. It includes researchers, technologists, the data, the privacy data officer, and ICT manager. We also have steering committee, and all these the library, which is also very important because having these using materials, it's good to collaborate with library, what is allowed and what is not allowed, and how to deal with this. And well, thank you everybody, even if they are not here, for this great work that we can do together. And thank you for your attention.
Then I think I'll we'll close the meeting by thanking the speakers, Marco, Somaya, and Natasha. And well, the intention was to bring quite diverse stories, dealing with education, dealing with interaction, using AI as a basis, and share that among us and the audience in the month of the AI for education. And I hope you enjoyed it all.